Shifters, entrepreneurs on the move, with your host, Amanda Barr, bringing you power-packed 15-minute conversations with entrepreneurs who share their stories of shifting in life and business to keep on the move. Welcome to the show. This is your host, Amanda Barr, and wow, do we have an incredible guest for you today. I have Bharat Kanodia, a business valuation master with over 2,000 valuations of businesses, real estate, industrial, and financial assets, including governmental infrastructures, public and private companies, and various unique real estate assets. He has also signed off on over 4,500 valuations with $2.6 trillion in assets globally. Bharat works from the San Francisco Bay Area and enjoys life with his family, even sailing, golfing, skiing, and horseback riding. Well, welcome to the show, Bharat.
Hey, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I am so excited to dive in. Can you take us down memory lane and share with us how you got to where you are today?
How much time you got?
We got some time, but yeah, please tell us.
Well, graduated from college as an engineer, and I hated engineering. I wanted a job that had nothing to do with engineering. But who's going to hire a 21-year-old kid with an engineering degree and give them a job in finance? Well, I found one person who happened to be my boss. So they were looking for one engineer on staff, and I just happened to be it. And it was a appraisal firm. It was the largest and the oldest appraisal firm in the world, American Appraisal, based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And that's how I got into this business. I started out doing simpler items, valuations of simpler items like machinery and equipment. Then I moved on to real estate, and now I'm really on the dark side of the equation doing business valuations.
Wow, that's incredible! What an interesting start. And I know you're sharing how you started with the company, but what actually made you go out on your own and shift into being your own entrepreneur?
In the valuation business, most people end up siloing themselves. Most people would say that, okay, I only value real estate, or I only value ESOPs, or I only value yachts. Over the last 20 years, I have valued a wide array of assets, including some of the most interesting assets in the world. So I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into doing one kind of an asset, because that's the best part about my job. I enjoy appraising different types of assets because I have to make myself an overnight expert in those assets. Otherwise, I'm doing my clients a disservice.
Interesting. Now, do you mind sharing a few of your favorite ones? I'd love to have our listeners find out some of your top of.
I have been fortunate enough to have appraised some of the weirdest sort of interesting assets that you can think of, right? I mean, when you think of these assets, you don't think that they would need an appraisal or evaluation. So I have appraised assets like the Veristrat Bridge, New York, the Atlanta Airport, Mirage Casino, Uber, Airbnb, Twitter, Yahoo, the Alaskan Pipeline, the Golden Gate Bridge. List goes on and on.
Wow, it's so incredible. I mean, it's just like everybody sees things, and you're living and going about your business. I mean, do you look at everything when you're going down the street? Do you look at it as a value, or how do you take in the world around you? Because this is your life.
Yes, people see buildings and people see, drywall. I just see building blocks of money. But, it just takes a certain kind of thinking. So, whenever I'm looking at an asset, I am just looking at three things that, okay, how much money can this asset make me? Or how much are similar assets selling for? Or what would it take to rebuild this asset from scratch?
Interesting. Now, I mean, you're telling us these great nuggets that you're looking for, but what should every business owner know about selling their business?
Uh, most business owners have turned their business into jobs. And if you go out in the market and try to sell a job, no buyer is going to want it because buyers aren't looking for jobs. Buyers are looking to buy investments or businesses. So if business owner cannot separate himself or herself from the business, then that business is not really a business, it's a job, and no one wants to buy it. So um, the more the owner makes the business run on autopilot, right, the more likely she will be able to sell it.
Incredible. That's great advice. I mean, and thinking about that, I mean, everybody has a price that they think their company is worth. Can you tell us what like the real facts are? Like, really, on average, like if it was my company or somebody else's company and thinking about this, I mean, how many companies actually sell, even if they are structured as they're not a job? What are the real facts behind that?
Facts are scary, very scary. Only 1 out of 20 companies, 1 out of 20, 5% of the companies actually sell. Most companies either never sell or they're just run into the ground or their expectations of the sellers are too high. And of the 5% of the companies that do sell, don't think that, buyers would write people just $1 million checks and ask the seller to walk away. No, the seller is still very much on the hook. Because many people, when they think of buying or selling a business, they try to equate that with the house, right? When you buy a house, you have a fixed yard, you have a fixed square footage, you have a fixed neighborhood. There aren't really too many moving parts. So when you transfer ownership of the house, you take the $1 million house and transfer ownership, and that tangible asset stays there, right? There's not much flexibility. Whereas when you're looking at a business, right, the moving parts are revenue, profit, employees, clients, products, right? Everything is moving on a day-to-day basis. So that's why the new buyer has to hedge their risk and keep the seller's skin in the game to make sure the asset that they're buying is exactly what they're buying.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot to think about. And man, those numbers, the facts are a little scary to think about it. And so many people have their companies, and I think it's always the dream that it's going to be multiple millions of dollars and right off into the sunset. But what happens to those? Do you have any suggestions, since you value companies all the time, do you have any suggestions for companies that maybe don't sell or maybe having a tough time being sold?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amanda. So buyers are looking for 2 things, and only 2 things. If somebody tells you otherwise, call BS on it, okay? One thing buyers are looking for, they're looking for consistent cash flow. Second thing buyers are looking for, they don't want to do anything to enjoy that cash flow. That's it. It's simple. So the closer and closer a seller brings their business to those 2 points, the likely the possibility of them selling the business and the higher the valuation.
Incredible. Now, when you think about those 2 aspects, and you're in looking at the valuations of things, why does it seem like it varies so much from one person's valuations to another, to what the business owner thought it was based on the metrics? Why does it vary?
Great question. Great question again. Value is really in the eye of the beholder. Again, giving the analogy of the house, when you think of a house, right, there aren't too many moving parts. So the value is fairly within a tight parameter. Whereas when you're looking at a business, right, everybody looks at a business differently. Some people are valuing customers. Some people are valuing the profit. Some people are valuing the tangible assets. Some people value the intellectual property. Some people are valuing the client list. So depending on the vantage point or what the beholder looks at, the valuation is different.
So in seeing how everybody has like a different thing, and I mean, you shared what you are looking for. Is there any time where you've got a company that you're looking at that, and also a buyer seller in communication? Are you looking at it from that perspective, or do you have like a structure that you're following and then you follow that one every time?
Yeah, I mean, appraisers can be leveraged in multiple ways, right? So we can work for either the buyer or the seller, or the bank or the lender or the investor, right? So if it's a third-party investor, or many times the buyer and the seller, they can hire us mutually and say that, okay, why don't you tell us what this thing is worth? I say this and he says that, so figure out a difference. And most times we just take the average between them.
Got it. And is there anything, just coming from your perspective, that you wish people knew actually about what you do, or about the industry, or about how it works?
Yeah, so most people do not understand that the same object can have multiple valuations, right? So say, for example, if you have your house, right? If you look up any house on Zillow, right, there is a asking price for the house, right? Then there might be a closing price for the house, right? Then there's an assessed value for the house, right? So similarly, a company as well, a company can have an accounting value. A company can have a value that is stated for, say, insurance purposes, right, for liability reasons. A company can have a different value for M&A. Now, there are also different M&As. So if you're buying, say, 5% or 10% of the stock on the company, there's a different value. If you're buying 100% stock on the company, there's a different value. If the buyer is a financial buyer, the value is different. If the buyer is a strategic buyer, the value is different. So just the way, if you're looking at a car, if you look at the car from front or the back or the side or the top, you see different angles and different views of the same car. Similarly, valuations of the same object can be different.
And that's why we hire you, because there are so many different ways you can look at it. And if this isn't your industry, wow, you could be going, which way do I look at my company, or which way do we value it? Is there anything out there you would love the opportunity to value at some point in your life, or put a appraisal to?
I have appraised stadiums, but I have not appraised sports teams. I think that would be interesting.
Ooh, well, hopefully one will come down the pipeline for you soon. And I'd love to know, I mean, definitely this industry that you're in, have you seen any shifts happening since you've been doing this a while? Are there any shifts happening now, or any shifts that people should keep an eye out on or know about regarding valuations and appraisals?
Oh,
or is it ever changing?
Most definitely. We live in an ever-evolving landscape. And valuations were done old school-wise, kind of like how underwriting was done at banks, where, you have a bunch of geeks like me sitting in a back office somewhere where nobody goes and nobody talks to you. And, where people like me are just sitting there and crunching numbers. Now, all those number crunchers are being replaced by computers and software. But that doesn't mean that people like me don't have projects or jobs. Similar to, think of it as Intuit came out with TurboTax, but does that mean that all CPAs don't have jobs anymore? No. CPAs have figured out a different way of keeping themselves engaged. Yeah,
I mean, being able to, I love that there's always the benefit of a human element, and a little bit of old school with the new age combined together, and greatness can be created. As we wrap up the show, I would love to know, you gave so many nuggets, so much information, just jam-packed, but if you could give a little bit extra shifter wisdom, what would be some advice for entrepreneurs out there to keep them on the move? Obviously, they'll be looking to potentially sell or make those choices at some point in their life, but what has either kept you on the move or you would say could be some motivation to keep them on the move?
My advice to entrepreneur is invest in technology. The more you invest in technology in your business, the better it is for you in long term. And the second thing is make your customers into loyal paying customers. Recurring revenue in any business is king. A buyer sees recurring revenue and they are ready to cut checks. Buyer sees ad hoc revenue, that makes them very nervous.
Great advice. Great advice. And I'm sure there are those that are listening that are going to say, how do I get in touch with them? So what's the best way for our listeners to reach out to you?
They can watch my YouTube channel. It's called What's It Worth, in which I talk about different types of businesses and how to think about their valuations and what to look out for, how to maximize value. And through that, you can find my contact information and reach out to me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your world with us today. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for all those listening out there, keep on the move.
We hope you enjoyed the episode today. We appreciate each one of you for listening and hope you left inspired and motivated to keep on the move. If you think this episode might help or inspire someone else, please share. Don't forget to subscribe and keep in the loop to hear more incredible stories of entrepreneurs like yourself on the move. Thank you for our supporters, RTB Capital Group, Financial Powerhouse, Callcast, and Power Podcasting. Now, get out there and keep on the move.